You're listening to KZOM, Oleander Public Radio.
Hey folks, I'm DB Spitzer, and this is the People's Guide to the Cthulhu Mythos. We're talking cosmic horror, strange fiction. Turn down the lights, turn up the static, it's time to get weird. If you like what you hear and you want to help keep the show going, check out pgttcm.com and check out the show's store. Thank you.
Deathworld by Harry Harrison, Chapter 25. There were few coherent memories of the ride. Some things stood out sharply, like the spaceship-sized lump of burning scoria that had plunged into a lake near them, showering the line with hot drops of water. But mostly it was just a seemingly endless ride, with Jason still too weak to care much about it. By dawn, the danger area was behind them, and the march had slowed to a walk. The animals had vanished as the quake was left behind, going their own ways, still in silent armistice. The peace of mutually shared danger was over. Jason found that out when they stopped to rest and eat. He and Reese went to sit on the soft grass near a fallen tree. A wild dog had arrived there first. It lay under the log, muscles tensed, the ruddy morning light striking a red glint from its eyes. Reese faced it not 3 meters away without moving a muscle. He made no attempt to reach one of his weapons or to call for help. Jason stood still as well, hoping the Pyrran knew what he was doing. With no warning at all, the dog sprang straight at them. Jason fell backwards as Reese pushed him aside. The Pyrran dropped at the same time, only now his hand held a long knife, yanked from the sheath strapped to his thigh. With unseen speed, the knife came up. The dog twisted in midair, trying to bite it. Instead, it sank behind the dog's forelegs, the beast's own weight tearing a deadly gaping wound the length of its body. It was still alive when it hit the ground, but Reese was astride it, pulling back the bony plated head to cut the soft throat underneath. The Pyrran carefully cleaned his knife on the dead animal's fur, then returned it to the sheath. "They're usually no trouble," he said quietly, but it was excited. Probably lost the rest of the pack in the quake. His actions were the direct opposite of the city Pyrrans. He had not looked for trouble nor started the fight. Instead, he had avoided it as long as he could, but when the beast charged, it had been neatly and efficiently dispatched. Now, instead of gloating over his victory, he seemed troubled by an unnecessary death. It made sense. Everything on Pyrrus made sense. Now he knew how the deadly planetary battle had started, and he knew how it could be ended. All the deaths had not been in vain. Each one had helped him along the road a little more towards the final destination. There was just one final thing to be done. Reese was watching him now, and he knew they shared the same thoughts. "Explain yourself," Reese said. What did you mean when you said we could wipe out the junkmen and get our freedom?" Jason didn't bother to correct the misquote. It was best they consider him 100% on their side. "Get the others together and I'll tell you. I particularly want to see Naxa and any other talkers who are here." They gathered quickly when the word was passed. All of them knew that the junkman had been killed to save this off-worlder, that their hope of salvation lay with him. Jason looked at the crowd of faces turned towards him and reached for the right words to tell them what had to be done. It didn't help to know that many of them would be killed doing it. "The small starship can't be used," he said. "You all saw that it was ruined beyond repair. But that was the easy way out. The hard way is still left. Though some of you may die in the long run, it will be the best solution. We're going to invade the city, break through the perimeter. I know how it can be done." A mutter of sound spread across the crowd. Some of them looked excited, happy with the thought of killing their hereditary enemies. Others stared at Jason as if he were mad. A few were dazed at the magnitude of the thought, this carrying of the battle to the stronghold of the heavily armed enemy. They quieted when Jason raised his hand. "I know, it sounds impossible," he said, "but let me explain. Something must be done, and now is the time to do it. The situation can only get worse from now on. The city the junkmen can get along without your food. Their concentrates taste awful, but they sustain life. But they are going to turn against you in every way they can. No more metals for your tools or replacements for your electronic equipment. Their hatred will probably make them seek out your farms and destroy them from the ship. All of this won't be comfortable, and there will be worse to come. In the city, they are losing their war against this planet. Each year there are less of them, and someday they will all be dead. Knowing how they feel, I am sure they will destroy their ship first, and the entire planet as well, if that is possible." "How can we stop them?" someone called out. "By hitting now," Jason answered. "I know all the details of the city, and I know how the defenses are set up. Their perimeter is designed to protect them from animal life, but we could break through if we're really determined." "What good would that do?" Reese snapped. "We crack the perimeter and they draw back, then counterattack in force. How can we stand against their weapons?" "We won't have to. Their spaceport touches the perimeter, and I know the exact spot where the ship stands. That is the place where we will break through. There is no formal guard on the ship and only a few people in the area. We will capture the ship. Whether we can fly it or not is unimportant. Who controls the ship controls Pyrrus. Once there, we threaten to destroy it if they don't meet our terms. They have the choice of mass suicide or cooperation. I hope they have the brains to cooperate." His words shocked them into silence for an instant, then they surged into a wave of sound. There was no agreement, just excitement, and Reese finally brought them to order. "Quiet," he shouted. "Wait until Jason finishes before you decide. We still haven't heard how this proposed invasion is to be accomplished." "The plan I have depends on the talkers," Jason said. "Is Naxa there?" He waited until the fur-wrapped man had pushed to the front. "I want to know more about the talkers, Naxa. I know you can speak to the Durhams and the dogs here, but what about the wild animals? Can you make them do what you want?" "They're animals. Of course we can talk to them. The more talkers, the more power. Make them do just what we want." "Then the attack will work," Jason said excitedly. "Could you get your talkers all on one side of the city, the opposite side from the spaceport, and stir the animals up, make them attack the perimeter?" "Could we?" Naxa shouted, carried away by the idea. "We'd bring in animals from all over, start the biggest attack they ever saw." "Then that's it. Your talkers will launch the attack on the far side of the perimeter. If you keep out of sight, the guards will have no idea that it is anything more than an animal attack. I've seen how they work. As an attack mounts, they call for reserves inside the city and drain men away from the other parts of the perimeter. At the height of the battle, when they have all their forces committed across the city, I'll lead the attack that will break through and capture the ship. That's the plan, and it's going to work." Jason sat down then, half fell down, drained of strength. He lay and listened as the debate went back and forth, Reese ordering it and keeping it going. Difficulties were raised and eliminated. No one could find a basic fault with the plan. There were plenty of flaws in it, things that might go wrong, but Jason didn't mention them. These people wanted his idea to work, and they were going to make it work. It finally broke up and they moved away. Reese came over to Jason. "The basics are settled," he said. "All here are in agreement. They are spreading the word by messenger to all the talkers. The talkers are the heart of the attack, and the more we have, the better it will go off. We don't dare use the screens to call them. There is a good chance that the junkmen can intercept our messages. It will take 5 days before we are ready to go ahead." "I'll need all that time if I'm to be any good," Jason said. "Now, let's get some rest."
Still humming with history and memory. Reverb, where the past still plays. To find out more, check out the show notes. Reverb.com. Back to the show.
Deathworld by Harry Harrison. Chapter 26. "It's a strange feeling," Jason said. "I've never really seen the perimeter from this side before. Ugly is about the only word for it." He lay on his stomach next to Reese, looking through a screen of leaves downhill towards the perimeter. They were both wrapped in heavy furs in spite of the midday heat, with thick leggings and leather gauntlets to protect their hands. The gravity and the heat were already making Jason dizzy, but he forced himself to ignore this. Ahead, on the far side of a burnt corridor, stood the perimeter. A high wall of varying height and texture, seemingly made of everything in the world. It was impossible to tell what it had originally been constructed of. Generations of attackers had bruised, broken, and undermined it. Repairs had been quickly made, patches thrust roughly into place and fixed there. Crude masonry crumbled and gave way to a rat's nest of woven timbers. This overlapped a length of pitted metal, large plates riveted together. Even this metal had been eaten through, and bursting sandbags spilled out of a jagged hole. Over the surface of the wall, detector wires and charged cables looped and hung. At odd intervals, automatic flamethrowers thrust their nozzles over the wall above and swept the base of the wall clear of any life that might have come close. "Those flame things can cause us trouble," Reese said. "That one covers the area where you want to break in." "It'll be no problem," Jason assured him. "It may look like it's firing a random pattern, but it's really not. It varies a simple sweep, just enough to fool an animal, but was never meant to keep men out. Look for yourself. It fires at regular, repeated 2, 4, 3, and 1 minute intervals." They crawled back to the hollow where Naxa and the others waited for them. There were only 30 men in the party. What they had to do could only be done with a fast, light force. Their strongest weapon was surprise. Once that was gone, their other weapons wouldn't hold out for seconds against the city guns. Everyone looked uncomfortable in the fur and leather wrappings, and some of the men had loosened them to cool off. "Wrap up," Jason ordered. "None of you have been this close to the perimeter before, and you don't understand how deadly it is here. Naxa is keeping the larger animals away, and you all can handle the smaller ones. That isn't the danger. Every thorn is poisoned, and even the blades of grass carry a deadly sting. Watch out for insects of any kind, and once we start moving, breathe only through the wet cloths." "He's right," Naxa snorted. "Never been closer than this myself. Death. Death up by that wall. Do like he says." They could only wait then, honing down already needle-sharp crossbow bolts and glancing up at the slowly moving sun. Only Naxa didn't share the unrest. He sat, eyes unfocused, feeling the movement of animal life in the jungle around him. "On the way," he said. "Biggest thing I ever heard. Not a beast between here and the mountains ain't howling its lungs out running towards the city." Jason was aware of part of it. A tension in the air and a wave of intensified anger and hatred. It would work, he knew, if they could only keep the attack confined to a small area. The talkers had seemed sure of it. They had stalked out quietly that morning, a thin line of ragged men, moving out in a mental sweep that would round up the Pyrran life and send it charging against the city. "They hit," Naxa said suddenly. The men were on their feet now, staring in the direction of the city. Jason had felt the twist as the attack had been driven home, and knew that this was it. There was the sound of shots and a heavy booming far away. Thin streamers of smoke began to blow above the treetops. "Let's get into position," Reese said. Around them the jungle howled with an echo of hatred. The half-sentient plants writhed and the air was thick with small flying things. Naxa sweated and mumbled as he turned back the animals that crashed towards them. By the time they reached the last screen of foliage before the burned out area, they had lost 4 men. One had been stung by an insect. Jason got the med kit to him in time, but he was so sick he had to turn back. The other 3 were bitten or scratched, and treatment came too late. Their swollen, twisted bodies were left behind on the trail. "Damn beasts hurt my head," Naxa muttered. "When we go in?" "Not yet," Reese said. "We wait for the signal." One of the men carried the radio. He sat it down carefully, then threw the aerial over a branch. The set was shielded so no radiation leaked out to give them away. It was turned on, but only a hiss of atmospheric static came from the speaker. "We could have timed it," Reese said. "No, we couldn't," Jason told him. "Not accurately. We want to hit that wall at the height of the attack, when our chances are best. Even if they hear the message, it won't mean a thing to them, and a few minutes later it won't matter." The sound from the speaker changed. A voice spoke a short sentence, then cut off. "Bring me 3 barrels of flour." "Let's go," Reese urged as he started forward. "Wait," Jason said, taking him by the arm. "I'm timing the flamethrower. It's due in... there!" A blast of fire sprayed the ground, then turned off. "We have 4 minutes to the next one. We hit the long period." They ran, stumbling in the soft ashes, tripping over charred bones and rusted metal. 2 men grabbed Jason under the arm and half carried him across the ground. It hadn't been planned that way, but it saved precious seconds. They dropped him against the wall and he fumbled out the bombs he had made. The charges from Crannon's gun, taken when he was killed, had been hooked together with a firing circuit. All the moves had been rehearsed carefully, and they went smoothly now. Jason had picked the metal wall as being the best spot to break in. It offered the most resistance to the native life, so the chances were it wouldn't be reinforced with sandbags or fill the way the other parts of the wall were. If he was wrong, they were all dead. The first men had slapped their wads of sticky congealed sap against the wall. Jason pressed the charges into them and they stuck, a roughly rectangular pattern as high as a man. While he did this, the detonating wire was run out to its length and the raiders pressed back against the base of the wall. Jason stumbled through the ashes to the detonator, fell on it, and pressed the switch at the same time. Behind him, a thundering bang shook the wall and red flame burst out. Reese was the first one there, pulling at the twisted and smoking metal with his gloved hands. Others grabbed on and bent the jagged pieces aside. The hole was filled with smoke and nothing was visible through it. Jason dived into the opening, rolled on a heap of rubble, and smacked into something solid. When he blinked the smoke from his eyes, he looked around him. He was inside the city. The others poured through now, picking him up as they charged in so he wouldn't be trampled underfoot. Someone spotted the spaceship and they ran that way. A man ran around the corner of a building towards them. His Pyrran reflexes sent him springing into the safety of a doorway the same moment he saw the invaders. But they were Pyrrans too. The man slumped slowly back onto the street, 3 metal bolts sticking out of his body. They ran on without stopping, running between the low storehouses. The ship stood ahead. Someone had reached it ahead of them. They could see the outer hatch slowly grinding shut. A hail of bolts from the bows crashed into it with no effect. "Keep going," Jason shouted. "Get next to the hull before he reaches the guns." This time 3 men didn't make it. The rest of them were under the belly of the ship when every gun let go at once. Most of them were aimed away from the ship. Still, the screaming of shells and electric discharges was ear-shattering. The 3 men still in the open dissolved under the fire. Whoever was inside the ship had hit all the gun trips at once, both to knock out the attackers and summon aid. He would be on the screen now, calling for help. Their time was running out. Jason reached up and tried to open the hatch while the others watched. It was locked from the inside. One of the men brushed him aside and pulled at the inset handle. It broke off in his hand, but the hatch remained closed. The big guns had stopped now, and they could hear again. "Did anyone get the gun from that dead man?" he asked. "It would blow this thing open." "No," Reese said. "We didn't stop." Before the words were out of his mouth, 2 men were running back towards the buildings, angling away from each other. The ship's guns roared again. A string of explosions cut across one man. Before they could change direction and find the other man, he had reached the buildings. He returned quickly, darting into the open to throw the gun to them. Before he could dive back to safety, the shells caught him. Jason grabbed up the gun as it skidded almost to his feet. They heard the sound of wide-open truck turbines screaming towards them as he blasted the lock. The mechanism sighed and the hatch sagged open. They were all through the airlock before the first truck appeared. Naxa stayed behind with the gun to hold the lock until they could take the control room. Everyone climbed faster than Jason once he had pointed them the way, so the battle was over when he got there. The single city Pyrran looked like a pincushion. One of the techs had found the gun controls and was shooting wildly, the sheer quantity of his fire driving the trucks back. "Someone get on the radio and tell the talkers to call off the attack," Jason said. He found the communications screen and snapped it on. Kirk's wide-eyed face stared at him from the screen. "You," Kirk said, breathing the word like a curse. "Yes, it's me," Jason answered. He talked without looking up while his hands were busy at the control board. "Listen to me, Kirk, and don't doubt anything I say. I may not know how to fly one of these ships, but I do know how to blow them up. Do you hear that sound?" He flipped over a switch and the faraway whine of a pump droned faintly. "That's the main fuel pump. If I let it run, which I won't right now, it could quickly fill the drive chamber with raw fuel. Pour in so much that it would run out of the stern tubes. Then what do you think would happen to your one and only spacer if I press the firing button? I'm not asking you what would happen to me, since you don't care. But you need this ship the way you need life itself." There was only silence in the cabin now. The men who had won the ship turned to face him. Kirk's voice grated loudly through the room. "What do you want, Jason? What are you trying to do? Why did you lead those animals in here?" His voice cracked and broke as anger choked him and spilled over. "Watch your tongue, Kirk," Jason said with soft menace. "These men you are talking about are the only ones on Pyrrus who have a spaceship. If you want them to share it with you, you had better learn to talk nicely. Now come over here at once and bring Bruco and Meta." Jason looked at the older man's florid and swollen face and felt a measure of sympathy. "Don't look so unhappy. It's not the end of the world. In fact, it might be the beginning of one. And another thing, leave this channel open when you go. Have it hooked into every screen in the city so everyone can see what happens here. Make sure it's taped, too, for replay." Kirk started to say something but changed his mind before he did. He left the screen, but the set stayed alive, carrying the scene in the control room to the entire city.
Innsmouth, stranger.
Hi, I'm Rob Whiten from the Innsmouth Book Club. Join me and my fellow guide John Chadwick as we take you on a fortnightly tour of Innsmouth. We visit places such as the Picture House, the Library and Innsmouth Museum to discuss all aspects of weird fiction, whether it be book, film, music, TV or art. As well as that, we stop over at the Gilman House to have a chat with a resident guest. That includes authors, artists, musicians, in fact Lovecraftian creatives of all types. You can find our free shows on Patreon, and there you can also sign up as a patron, which brings you bonus content, plus a monthly PDF copy of Innsmouth News, which features articles, author spotlights, all the latest news and reviews, and more. You can find us at patreon.com/InnsmouthBC. We hope to see you soon, because remember, Innsmouth isn't just a place, it's a state of mind.
Check out the show notes or go to pgttcm.com for more information. And also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all the other places where podcast stuff exists. All right, back to the show.
In Legacy Door, a lurker from space casts a shadow over time.
We opened our eyes upon the human world. We found ourselves lying on an especially yielding bed in a room displaying scattered relics of their shallow past, tied together by more recently produced items meant to blend with the relics. Typical.
A sensitive journalist dreams of unknown lives.
Seems like every time I close my eyes, they get stronger. I can't even say the last time I had a normal sleep, let alone a dreamless one.
An outspoken lawyer defends the suspect in an unspeakable crime.
And that client was Jonathan Strauss, held for the murder of his daughter Abigail and her companion Harrison Reese.
And a stalwart investigator tries to drag it all into the light.
Some of the Reeses and the Strausses have been involved with something that seems to include an obsession with bloodlines and longevity for at least decades.
Legacy Door is a weekly cosmic horror mystery podcast. An ensemble of actors tell a story, also available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook. Available now.